Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the bridge window of the defense station, watching the stars like he did every morning for the past 20 years. The coffee in his metal cup was still warm, and Earth looked peaceful from this distance. Blue and white swirls moved across the planet's surface like they always had. Nothing seemed different about this Tuesday morning in 2387 dot, and the alarm started screaming. "Admiral, we have contacts," shouted Lieutenant Kelly from the sensor station. Her voice was high and tight with fear. "Massive signatures coming out of hyperspace near Jupiter." Jake set down his coffee and walked to the main display. What he saw made his blood run cold. Ships were appearing one by one in the outer system. Not just a few ships, but hundreds. Then thousands. Each one was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Get me President Walsh on the emergency channel," Jake said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking slightly. "And wake up Dr. Chong. We need the science team on this right now." The ships kept coming. They formed perfect lines in space, like soldiers standing at attention. The largest vessel was so big it blocked out the stars behind it. Jake had been in space combat before, but he had never seen anything like this. Dr. Lisa Chang arrived at the command center still putting on her lab coat. Her black hair was messy from sleep, but her eyes were sharp and focused. She looked at the display and whistled low. "Those aren't human ships," she said. "The design is completely different, and the energy readings are off the charts." "How many?" Jake asked. "Still counting, sir. Over 8,000 so far, and more are arriving every minute." President Kevin Walsh appeared on the main screen from his office in Washington. The man looked tired, but his voice was calm. "Admiral, what's our situation?" "Unknown alien fleet, sir. Biggest thing I've ever seen. They're not attacking yet, but they're not talking either. Keep monitoring. I'm calling an emergency session of the Terran Council. If these visitors want to talk, we need to be ready." The waiting was the worst part. The alien ships just sat there in space, silent and threatening. Human patrols stayed far away, but they could see the fleet clearly on their sensors. Each ship was armed with weapons that human technology couldn't even identify. 3 hours later, everything changed. A beam of light shot from the largest alien ship straight to Earth. Not a weapon, but some kind of communication signal. Every screen on the planet suddenly showed the same image. A tall, insect-like creature with 4 arms and glowing red eyes. Its voice was translated into every human language at once. "I am Overseer Zethkri of the Hegemony," the creature said. Its voice was cold and emotionless. "Your species has grown large enough to require attention. You will comply with our demands or face the consequences." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was first contact with an alien species, and they were making demands. "The hegemony has ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years, Zethkri continued. "We have absorbed 1 million species into our empire. You are nothing special. You are simply next." The alien's image showed a star map. Red dots marked thousands of star systems under hegemony control. Human space was a tiny green cluster surrounded by an ocean of red. "These are our terms," Zethkri said. "You will surrender control of all human governments to hegemony administrators. You will provide annual tribute of 70% of all resources, technology, and population. You will cease all military activities and dismantle your fleets. You will abandon any plans for expansion beyond your current territory." Jake looked at Dr. Chong. Her face was pale, but her mind was working. She was already calculating something on her tablet. "You have 6 months to prepare for our return," the alien said. "If you comply, your species will serve the hegemony for the next 1,000 years. If you resist, you will be eliminated completely. There is no third option." The transmission ended, leaving every human in the galaxy staring at blank screens. President Walsh called an emergency meeting of the Terran Council. Representatives from all 37 human colonies gathered in the Capitol building on Earth. The debate was fierce and desperate. "We can't fight them," said Governor Martinez from New Texas. "Did you see those ships? We'd be shooting spitballs at a battleship, so we just give up?" asked Counselor Johnson from the Mars colonies. "Let them take our children as slaves?" 70% of our population, Dr. Chong said quietly. "That's not slavery. That's genocide with extra steps." Jake studied the tactical reports. The numbers were impossible. The hegemony fleet had more firepower than all human forces combined. Every simulation showed the same result: complete defeat in less than a day. "There has to be another way," President Walsh said. "We've survived ice ages, world wars, and the colonization of hostile planets. Humans don't give up." Dr. Chong looked up from her calculations. "What if we don't fight and don't surrender?" The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the small woman with the big idea. "Explain," Walsh said. "What if we leave?" Chong said, "All of us. Every human, every ship, every piece of technology. We pack up our entire civilization and go somewhere else." "That's impossible," Governor Martinez said. "You're talking about moving billions of people." "Moving entire colonies," Jake added. "Industrial bases, orbital stations, research facilities. The logistics alone would be a nightmare." "I've been running the numbers," Chong said. "It would be the largest operation in human history. But it's not impossible, just very, very difficult." "Where would we go?" asked Counselor Johnson. Chong smiled for the first time that day. "Andromeda, another galaxy entirely. Far enough away that the hegemony would never find us." The room erupted in arguments. Some called it brilliant. Others called it insane. But as the hours passed, one thing became clear. It was the only plan that offered hope. President Walsh stood up. The room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "if the hegemony wants our worlds, they can have the empty shells. We're taking our people and going home, to a new home." The countdown began. 6 months to move an entire civilization. 6 months to prove that humans could do the impossible. The greatest adventure in human history was about to begin. The next morning, Earth looked the same from space, but everything had changed. President Walsh's announcement had reached every human colony in the galaxy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dr. Lisa Chong stood in the largest conference room on Luna Station, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship designs, population counts, and resource calculations. Engineers, scientists, and military officers worked around the clock, turning an impossible dream into a workable plan. "We need to move 8.7 billion people," she said to the assembled team, "plus all the equipment, supplies, and infrastructure to rebuild our civilization in Andromeda." Tony Martinez, the best ship engineer in human space, scratched his beard as he studied the numbers. "The biggest colony ship we've ever built holds 50,000 people. We'd need over 100,000 ships that size. So we build bigger ships," Chong said, "and we convert everything we have." The project became known as the ARC program. Every shipyard in human space started working on the same goal: turn anything that could fly into a vessel that could carry people to another galaxy. Mining platforms became floating cities. Cargo haulers were gutted and filled with living quarters. Even luxury cruise ships were stripped down and rebuilt for the long journey. The crown jewel was the UTS Exodus, a massive ship being built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Captain Amy Brooks received her orders while exploring the frontier near the galactic rim. Her ship, the UTS Discovery, was humanity's most advanced scout vessel. Her mission was simple in words, but deadly in practice. Find a new home for the human race. The target is the Andromeda Galaxy, Admiral Morrison told her over the encrypted channel. Find us habitable worlds, and do it without alerting any alien civilizations. If anyone discovers what we're doing, the whole plan falls apart. Amy studied the star charts. Andromeda was 2.5 million light-years away. Even with humanity's best faster-than-light drives, it would take months to get there. And that was just for a small scout ship. What about the hegemony? She asked. They might have monitoring stations. That's why we need you to be invisible, Morrison replied. Take the long way around. Stay in empty space. If you see any alien activity, go the other direction. While Amy's team searched for new worlds, the evacuation of human colonies began in secret. Commander Beth Johnson led this operation from a hidden base in the asteroid belt. Her job was to empty entire star systems without the hegemony noticing. The trick is to make it look normal, she explained to her team. People get sick, planets have disasters, colonies fail for economic reasons. We need to create believable cover stories for why populations are disappearing. The first test was New Geneva, a mining colony with 2 million people. Johnson's team spread rumors about a plague outbreak. Medical ships arrived to evacuate the population. In reality, the entire colony was loaded onto transport ships and moved to a hidden staging area near Earth. Plague contained, Johnson reported to fake medical authorities. Colony quarantined indefinitely. The hegemony monitoring stations recorded the report and moved on. One down, 36 colonies to go. Dr. Alex Kim worked with Amy's scouting team, analyzing data from remote sensors. His job was to find worlds where humans could live without extensive terraforming. The requirements were strict: breathable atmosphere, liquid water, reasonable gravity, and no intelligent life. What about this one? Amy asked, pointing to a planet in the outer spiral arm of Andromeda. Looks like Earth's twin. Alex studied the readings. Good atmosphere, 3 continents, mild climate. But there's something strange about the geology. These mineral formations don't match anything in our databases. Strange how? They're too perfect, too organized. Like someone built them. Amy felt a chill. Intelligent life? Not current, but maybe in the past. We'll need to investigate further. Back on Earth, the political situation was getting complicated. Some colonial governors refused to evacuate their worlds. They believed they could negotiate with the hegemony or find ways to hide from them. Governor Stevens from Titan Colony sent an angry message to President Walsh. I've spent 30 years building this place. I'm not abandoning it because of some alien threats. We can find ways to appease them. Walsh tried to be diplomatic. Governor, the hegemony isn't interested in negotiation. They're conquerors. If we stay, we become slaves. If we fight, we die. Then we hide, Stevens replied. Shut down all transmissions. Go dark, wait for them to leave. For how long? A year? A century? They control the entire galaxy. There's nowhere to hide. The argument went on for days. In the end, Walsh had to make a hard choice. Colonies that refused to evacuate would be left behind. The greater good required it. Meanwhile, the ARC program faced its own challenges. The UTS Exodus was behind schedule. The asteroid they were hollowing out was larger than expected, and the new faster-than-light drives were proving difficult to install. We need more time, Tony Martinez reported during a status meeting. The quantum tunnel generators are completely new technology. We're basically inventing physics as we go. We don't have more time, Chang replied. The hegemony returns in 4 months. If we're not ready, billions of people die. Then we launch with what we have and fix problems along the way. Amy's team finally found what they were looking for. A cluster of star systems in Andromeda's outer arm with 12 habitable worlds. The planets were empty of intelligent life, but rich in resources. Best of all, they were surrounded by empty space, far from any known alien civilizations. Haven sector, Amy reported. 12 worlds, all suitable for human habitation. The journey will take 6 months with our current drive technology. Chang smiled for the first time in weeks. Perfect. How long until we can start moving people? The transport ships are ready now, but we need to move fast. Some of the hegemony patrols are starting to ask questions about our colony evacuations. The final preparations began. Every human in the galaxy received the same message. In 60 days, we jump to our new home. Pack only what you can carry. Leave everything else behind. We're going to build something better. Families said goodbye to homes they had lived in for generations. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. Why were they leaving? Would they ever come back? What would happen to Earth? We're not running away. President Walsh told the billions of people watching his broadcast. We're running toward something better. A place where no one can tell us how to live, what to believe, or who we can become. The countdown entered its final phase. 60 days to save the human race. 60 days to prove that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to fight and choose to survive instead. The greatest evacuation in galactic history was about to begin. The hegemony fleet arrived exactly 6 months after their first visit. Overseer Zethgri expected to find either a surrendering human government or a military force preparing for hopeless battle. Instead, he found something that had never happened. In 50,000 years of galactic conquest, the human worlds were emptied. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UT Defiance, watching the alien ships spread across the solar system. Behind him, the last group of evacuation ships was preparing to jump to hyperspace. 15,000 vessels of every size and type, carrying the entire human civilization toward their new home in Andromeda. All civilian ships report ready for jump, Lieutenant Kelly announced. The Exodus is standing by to create the tunnel. Jake nodded. Dr. Chong's plan was working perfectly. The massive ship built inside the asteroid would use its oversized drives to create a hyperspace tunnel big enough for the entire fleet to jump through at once. It was dangerous and had never been tested, but it was their only chance to escape together. Signal from the hegemony flagship, Kelly said. They're demanding to speak with Earth's leadership. Put them through, Jake said. Let's give them our answer. Overseer Zethgri appeared on the screen, his insect-like face showing confusion and anger. Where are your people? Our sensors show no significant life signs on any human world. President Walsh's voice came through the communication. System from the Exodus. Overseer, you gave us a choice between slavery and death. We reject both options. We choose freedom. Impossible, Zethgri hissed. No species has ever attempted to relocate their entire civilization. Where do you think you can go that the hegemony will not find you? Far enough away that you'll never be a problem again, Walsh replied. Consider this our resignation from your empire. The transmission cut off. Jake watched the hegemony ships changing formation, moving to surround the human fleet. They had expected surrender or resistance, not evacuation. Now they were adapting to stop the escape. Enemy ships moving to intercept, Kelly reported. Fast attack vessels breaking off from the main fleet. Jake opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships. This is Admiral Morrison. The hegemony is trying to stop our escape. Military vessels will engage to buy time for the civilians. Everyone else, prepare for emergency jump. The battle began as the human rear guard met the hegemony interceptors near Mars. The alien ships were faster and more heavily armed, But the human pilots knew their own vessels better. They used every trick they had learned in decades of space combat. Captain Amy Brooks commanded the escort fighters, using hit-and-run tactics to slow down the enemy advance. Her pilots were outnumbered 10-1, but they were fighting for their families and their future. "Blue Squadron, target their drive systems," she ordered. "We don't need to destroy them, just slow them down." The human ships darted between the larger alien vessels, firing precise shots at engine components. Several hegemony ships fell behind, their faster-than-light drives damaged, but more enemy ships kept coming. The hegemony had brought their entire fleet, and they were determined not to let humanity escape. "Admiral, we're losing too many ships," Amy reported. "The civilians need to jump now." Jake made the hardest decision of his military career. All civilian vessels, begin evacuation jump. Military ships will follow when able. Dr. Chong's voice came over the communication system from the Exodus. "Hyperspace tunnel charging. All ships link navigation systems and prepare for coordinated jump." The process was incredible to watch. 15,000 ships of different sizes and designs linked their computers together, creating a single massive navigation network. The Exodus, with its experimental drives, began generating a tunnel through hyperspace large enough for the entire fleet. "Tunnel stable," Chang reported. "All ships jump in 10 seconds." The hegemony forces realized what was happening and increased their attack. More human ships were destroyed in the final moments before the jump. Jake watched his friends and colleagues die to save the civilian population. "Jump initiated," Chang announced. The tunnel opened like a tear in space itself. One by one, the human ships disappeared into the glowing passage. Transport ships carrying millions of people, cargo vessels loaded with supplies, and colony ships. That would become the foundation of humanity's new civilization. Jake was in the last group to jump. His ship, the Defiance, had taken heavy damage protecting the evacuation fleet. Half his crew was dead, and the ship's engines were failing. "Sir, we're not going to make it," Kelly said. "The hyperspace drive is too damaged." Jake looked at the tunnel, already beginning to collapse as the Exodus completed its work. His ship was too slow and too damaged to escape. "Transfer all remaining crew to the rescue pods," he ordered. "Set them for automatic pilot toward the tunnel." "What about you, sir?" Jake smiled sadly. "Someone needs to slow down our friends here. Besides, a good captain goes down with his ship." The rescue pods launched just as the hegemony ships reached the Defiance. Jake fired everything he had, destroying 2 enemy vessels before his ship was overwhelmed. The explosion bought precious seconds for the pods to reach the tunnel. Amy Brooks watched from the other side of the passage as Jake's ship died. The man who had trained her, who had been like a father to her, was gone. But his sacrifice had saved the evacuation fleet. "Tunnel collapse in 30 seconds, Chang announced. "All remaining ships jump now." The last few human vessels, including the damaged rescue pods, disappeared into the tunnel. The hegemony fleet was left behind, facing an empty passage as the tunnel closed forever. Overseer Zethkri stared at the empty space where 15,000 human ships had vanished. In 50,000 years of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. An entire species had simply left, taking their entire civilization with them. "Track them," he ordered his subordinates. "Find where they went." "Impossible, sir." The tunnel left no trace. It could have gone anywhere in the universe. On the other side of the passage, the human fleet emerged in the Haven sector of the Andromeda Galaxy. The journey through hyperspace had taken only minutes, but they had traveled further than any living being in galactic history. President Walsh's voice came over the fleet communication system. "Citizens of humanity, we have arrived at our new home. The journey was difficult, and we lost many good people along the way. But we are free. We are alive, and we are together. Amy Brooks looked out at the 12 worlds of the Haven sector. Each one was beautiful and empty, waiting for human cities and human dreams. The cost had been terrible, but they had succeeded. Admiral Morrison would be proud, she said quietly. Dr. Chung's voice came over the communication system. All ships, begin landing procedures. Welcome to the first day of humanity's new future. The great escape was over. The even greater challenge of building a new civilization was about to begin. Behind them, 2.5 million light-years away, the hegemony fleet searched empty space for any sign of where humanity had gone. They would search for decades and find nothing. The humans had simply vanished, leaving behind only empty worlds, and a message that would inspire other species for generations to come. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is run away, so you can return another day stronger. And humanity would return when they were ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy. But that was a story for another day. Today was about new beginnings, new worlds, and the indomitable human spirit that refused to be broken no matter how impossible. The odds dot the greatest adventure in human history was just beginning. The first sunrise on Haven Prime was unlike anything humans had ever seen. 2 suns rose over the eastern mountains, casting purple and gold light across vast plains that stretched to the horizon. President Walsh stood on the observation deck of the temporary landing station, watching the light play across the landscape that would become humanity's new home. "It's beautiful," said Dr. Chung, joining him at the window. "Different from Earth, but beautiful." Walsh nodded. "We did it. Lisa, we actually did it." "The easy part is over," Chung replied. "Now we have to build a civilization from scratch." The human fleet had been in the Haven sector for 6 months. The 12 worlds of their new home were slowly filling with cities, farms, and the sounds of human life. But the transition from starship to planetary living was harder than anyone had expected. Captain Amy Brooks, now promoted to Admiral of the Haven Defense Force, received daily reports from the colony worlds. The news was mixed. Some colonies were thriving, but others faced serious problems. "New Earth is doing well," reported Governor Maria Santos during the morning briefing. "We have 3 major cities established and food production is ahead of schedule. But Liberty Colony is struggling. The high gravity is causing health problems for the older colonists." "What about Frontier?" Amy asked. "The floating continents are amazing, but we're having trouble establishing permanent settlements. The weather patterns are unpredictable, and we've lost 2 construction platforms to storms." Amy studied the reports. Each world presented unique challenges. Harmony had strange crystal formations that interfered with electronic equipment. Paradise looked perfect, but had soil that wouldn't grow earth crops. Freedom was rich in minerals, but had an atmosphere that was barely breathable. "We'll adapt," Amy said. "We always do." The biggest challenge was psychological. Dr. Ryan Clark, the colony's chief medical officer, reported increasing cases of what he called void sickness, a depression that affected people who had spent too long in space. "They're having trouble adjusting to permanent gravity," he explained to the Leadership Council. "Some colonists are asking to go back to the ships. They feel safer in space than on solid ground." "We expected this," Walsh said. "It will take time for people to feel at home here." "There's something else," Clark continued. "We're seeing a generational divide. The older colonists want to rebuild Earth's civilization exactly as it was. The younger ones want to try new things, adapt to these new worlds." This tension was visible everywhere. In New Geneva, older colonists had built exact replicas of Earth buildings, down to the architectural details. But younger colonists were experimenting with new designs that used local materials and adapted to the planet's unique environment. Let them experiment, Walsh decided. We came here to build something new, not to recreate the past. The most significant discovery came from Dr. Alex, Kim's archaeological team on Haven Prime. While exploring the northern continent, they found ruins of an ancient civilization that had disappeared millions of years ago. Look at this, Kim said, showing holographic images to the council. These aren't random ruins. This was a highly advanced society. The technology is beyond anything we've seen. The ruins contain machinery that still worked after millions of years. Energy systems that drew power from the planet's magnetic field. Communication devices that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Most importantly, they found knowledge. Libraries of information stored in crystalline matrices that human computers could barely decode. This could change everything, Chang said, studying the alien technology. Their understanding of physics is centuries ahead of ours. Should we be worried? Amy asked. What happened to them? No signs of war or disaster, Kim replied. It's like they just left, packed up their entire civilization, and went somewhere else. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Humanity had found a new home in a place where another species had once done exactly what humans had just done. Abandoned their worlds to seek a new life elsewhere. The alien technology began to transform human civilization. Engineers used the power systems to build cities that needed no external energy sources. The communication devices allowed instant contact between the 12 worlds, something that had been impossible with human technology. But the most important discovery was the faster-than-light drive designs. The alien technology could move ships across galactic distances in days instead of months. We could build ships that could reach Earth in less than a week, Chang explained to the council. If we wanted to go back, we could. Are you suggesting we should? Walsh asked. I'm suggesting we should have the option. While the colonies grew stronger, some humans chose a different path. Captain Steve Miller led a group that became known as the Wanderers, people who preferred to live in space, exploring the galaxy in their ships rather than settling on planets. The galaxy is huge, Miller explained to Walsh. We've only seen a tiny part of it. There could be other species out there who need our help. Other worlds where humans could live. And if you encounter the hegemony, then we'll do what we do best. We'll run, hide, and survive. Walsh approved the Wanderer program. Small fleets of explorer ships began mapping the outer regions of Andromeda, searching for resources, habitable worlds, and signs of other intelligent life. 1 year after the evacuation, President Walsh stood before the combined populations of all 12 worlds via holographic transmission. The speech was broadcast to every human settlement in the Haven sector. We have survived our first year in Andromeda, he said. We have built cities, grown food, and raised children under alien suns. We have learned from the past and embraced the future. Most importantly, we have remained free. The statistics were impressive. The human population had grown to 9 billion. 23 major cities had been established. Agricultural production was meeting demand. Industrial capacity was approaching pre-evacuation levels. But we are not the same people who left Earth, Walsh continued. We are stronger, more adaptable, more united. We have learned that home is not a place. It's the people you choose to share your life with. The children born in Andromeda were different from their parents. They grew up with alien sunrises, crystalline forests, and floating cities. They learned to use technology that mixed human engineering with alien science. They spoke of Earth as a distant legend, not a lost home. This is our world now, said 8-year-old Tommy Chun, born on Haven Prime. We don't need to go back to Earth. We can make something better here. The older generation wasn't so sure. Many still dreamed of returning to Earth someday, of walking on beaches they remembered from childhood, of seeing the blue sky and single sun of humanity's birth world. "We'll go back," promised Amy Brooks during a Veterans Memorial service. "Not as refugees, but as liberators. We'll make sure no species ever has to face what we faced." The memorial honored Admiral Morrison and the thousands of humans who had died during the evacuation. Their sacrifice had saved billions of lives and given humanity a new beginning. As the second year began, the human colonies faced new challenges. Population growth was straining resources. Political disagreements were emerging between different worlds. Some colonists wanted to remain isolated in Andromeda, while others pushed for contact with the outside galaxy. "We're becoming a true interstellar civilization," observed Dr. Chang during a council meeting, "with all the benefits and problems that brings." "What do you recommend?" Walsh asked. "We prepare for whatever comes next. We build ships, train soldiers, and develop technology. Because sooner or later, we're going to encounter other species. And when we do, we need to be ready." The Haven sector was no longer just a refuge. It was becoming a power in its own right, with technology that surpassed anything in the Milky Way. The question was, what would humanity do with that power? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. In the third year, the Wanderer fleet led by Captain Miller detected something troubling in the deep space between galaxies. A damaged ship from the Milky Way, carrying a survivor with news that would change everything. Humanity's isolation was about to end. The galaxy they had fled was calling them back, not as conquerors, but as saviors. The greatest test of human civilization was yet to come. Captain Steve Miller had been exploring the void between galaxies for 2 years when his ship's sensors detected something impossible. A damaged vessel was drifting in the empty space between Andromeda and the Milky Way, barely holding together, and leaking atmosphere. "It's not one of ours," reported his sensor officer, Lieutenant Emma Davis. "Design is completely alien, but the energy signature matches hegemony technology." Miller studied the readings. The ship was dying. Its crew, probably. Dead or dying. But something had driven it to make the impossible journey between galaxies. "Prepare a rescue shuttle," he ordered. "If there are survivors, we need to know what brought them here." The rescue team found one survivor in the wreckage. A hegemony officer, barely alive, connected to emergency life support. He was smaller than Overseer Zethkri, with different markings that suggested a lower rank. "Sub-Commander Veltar," the alien said weakly when he regained consciousness aboard Miller's ship. "I bring ... Warning. The news that Veltar carried would shake the foundations of human civilization. The hegemony was collapsing. Humanity's escape had inspired dozens of other species to rebel or flee. The empire that had seemed invincible was fracturing under the weight of its own oppression. Your species showed others that escape was possible. Veltar explained to the assembled human leaders via holographic transmission. The Vorthan Collective declared independence. The crystalline hives went into hiding. The Metallic Confederacy abandoned their tribute worlds. President Walsh, now in his 70s but still sharp, listened carefully. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because there is something worse coming," Veltar replied. The hegemony was created to contain an ancient threat from the galactic core, the Devourers. With the Empire weakening, they're spreading again. Admiral Amy Brooks felt a chill. "What are the Devourers?" "Machines," Veltar said. "Built by a species that died out millions of years ago. They consume entire star systems, converting matter into more machines. The hegemony has been fighting them for 50,000 years. Dr. Chang, now the head of Andromedan scientific research, studied the data Veltar had brought. "These readings are terrifying. Each Devourer ship is the size of a moon, and they're self-replicating. How many are there? Walsh asked. Unknown. They come from the galactic core, where no living being can survive. But with the hegemony weakening, they're expanding into inhabited space. Entire star systems are going dark. The human leadership faced an impossible choice. They could stay safe in Andromeda, protected by the vast distance between galaxies. Or they could return to help fight a threat that could destroy all life in the Milky Way. It's not our fight, argued Governor Santos from New Earth. We escaped from that galaxy. Why should we go back? Because if the Devourers win, they'll eventually come here too, replied Dr. Chong. And because it's the right thing to do. The debate raged for months. Town halls were held on every human world. Families discussed it over dinner. Children asked their parents what they would do. Amy Brooks found herself thinking about Admiral Morrison and his sacrifice during the evacuation. What would he have done? She knew the answer. We go back, she said during a council meeting. Not for revenge, not for conquest, but because no species should face extinction alone. The decision was made by popular vote across all 12 worlds. 63% of humans chose to return to the Milky Way, not to reclaim their old worlds, but to help fight an enemy that threatened all life. The preparations took 2 years. Using the ancient alien technology found in the ruins, human engineers built a new generation of warships. These vessels were unlike anything that had ever existed, powered by crystalline energy cores, armed with weapons that could tear holes in space itself, and protected by shields that bent reality around them. The flagship was named UTS Liberation, a massive vessel that combined human engineering with Andromedan science. Amy Brooks would command the fleet, while President Walsh remained in Andromeda to govern the colonies. We're not the same species that fled 10 years ago, Walsh said at the departure ceremony. We're stronger, wiser, and we have technology. That surpasses anything in the galaxy. But most importantly, we're still human. We still believe in freedom, hope, and the right of all beings to choose their own destiny. The returned fleet consisted of 500 ships carrying 2 million volunteers. They were soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians who believed that helping others was worth the risk. The journey back to the Milky Way took only 3 weeks with the new drives. When they arrived at the edge of human space, they found a galaxy transformed. Dozens of worlds were in rebellion against the hegemony. Others had gone dark, consumed by the advancing devourer fleets. Earth itself was still controlled by the hegemony, but barely. The planet had become a fortress world, surrounded by defense stations and filled with alien troops. This is Admiral Amy Brooks of the Human Liberation Fleet. She broadcast on all frequencies. We have returned, not as conquerors, but as allies to all who fight for freedom. The response was immediate. Rebel fleets from a dozen species converged. On the human position, the Vorthan Collective sent their crystal ships. The Metallic Confederacy deployed their drone swarms. Even some hegemony units defected, choosing freedom over oppression. Your return has given us hope, said Commander Zara of the Vorthan rebels. With your technology and our numbers, we can win this war. The first major battle took place near the ruins of New Geneva Colony. 3 Devourer ships, each the size of a small moon, were converting the local star system into raw materials for more machines. The combined rebel fleet engaged them in a battle that lit up the entire sector. Human ships proved devastatingly effective. Their new weapons could destroy Devourer vessels in single shots, while their shields made them nearly invulnerable to enemy fire. But the real advantage was human tactics, the ability to think creatively and adapt quickly to changing situations. Target their replication centers, Amy ordered. Stop them from making more machines. The battle was won, but at a cost. The Devourers had learned from the encounter and would adapt their own tactics. The war would be long and difficult. Over the following year, the Rebel Alliance liberated dozens of star systems. Human technology became the backbone of the resistance, while human leadership helped coordinate the efforts of multiple species. The tide turned at the Battle of Core Station, a massive hegemony fortress near the galactic center. The rebel fleet, led by human ships, broke through the station's defenses and discovered something shocking. The hegemony had been trying to negotiate with the Devourers, offering them tribute in exchange for peace. They're willing to sacrifice entire species to save themselves, reported Dr. Kim, who had joined the expedition to study ancient technology. We found communication logs. They were planning to feed the Outer Rim worlds to the machines. The revelation turned even more hegemony forces against their own leadership. Overseer Zethkri, the same alien who had demanded tribute from Earth, was overthrown by his own subordinates. The old empire is dead, announced Sub-Commander Veltar, who had become a key ally. What we build now must be better. The final battle came at the galactic core itself, where the Devourer production facilities were located. The combined fleet of free species, led by human technology and tactics, penetrated the forbidden zone where no organic life had ever survived. "This is it," Amy announced to her fleet. "We end this here, or we lose everything." The battle lasted 3 days. Human ships, powered by Andromedan energy cores, dove into the heart of enemy space. They destroyed the ancient facilities that had been producing Devourer machines for millions of years, finally ending the threat that had plagued the galaxy. But victory came with a price. The core region was left uninhabitable, a dead zone that would serve as a permanent reminder of the cost of freedom. With the war over, the galaxy faced the challenge of rebuilding. The old hegemony was dissolved, replaced by a democratic federation of free species. Humans played a key role in its formation, sharing their technology and their principles of individual liberty. We learned something important during our exile, Amy said at the founding ceremony of the Galactic Federation. "Home isn't a place you're born, it's a place you choose to protect. Today, we choose to protect all of it." The new Federation established its capital on Harmony, one of the human worlds in Andromeda. The crystal formations that had once interfered with technology now served as a galaxy-wide communication network, allowing instant contact between thousands of member worlds. Earth was restored to human control, but it was no longer the center of human civilization. That honor belonged to the 12 worlds of the Haven sector, where humanity had learned to become something greater than they had ever been before. President Walsh, now in his 80s, gave his final speech from Heaven Prime. 20 years ago, we faced an impossible choice and chose the impossible option. We ran away from our problems, not because we were cowards, but because we were smart enough to know that sometimes retreat is the first step toward victory. Children born in Andromeda now served as ambassadors to dozens of alien species. Human technology protected trade routes across the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, Captain Miller's Wanderer fleets continued exploring, carrying the message of freedom.